at the end of the 1,000 years, there's going to be a rebellion. But you can't call the war, because as soon as Satan gets his little group and they go up off the earth to attack our city, the fire comes down and destroys them right where they are. How many of you really getting this? It's fallen in place, hasn't it? I can see it in your faces. It's that it has fallen in place, and that is so important because of where we're living today. Okay? We're going to give you a chance to ask some questions here in a few minutes. It said, the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. He shares the kingdom, reign with other rulers. That's why he's called King of Kings and Lord of Lords, because during that 1,000-year reign, he will share the kingdom reign. He will be the King of Kings. He will be the Lord of Lords. That is his title. And see, that's what Satan wants. That's what Satan wants. And he gets to do that the last 3.5 years of the tribulation. From all the way back, over 6,000 years ago, we have no idea when he attacked heaven. But he wanted to be God. And his throne, right there at the Tower of Babel, the Gentile world powers. That's where his throne is. Let's go on. The King of Kings at the bottom of the page. Look, we, the church, or the bride of Christ, will reign with him for 1,000 years. That's where you're going to be. You'll be able to go into the heavenly city, like Jacob's ladder, and you'll be able to come down to the earth, depending upon where he assigns you. So we, the church of the bride of Christ, will reign with him for 1,000 years, as well as saints from all other dispensations. That's why it's important to know the dispensations. Revelation 5:10 says, he hath made us unto our God kings and priests, and we shall reign on this earth. Okay? And then Revelation 26, blessed and holy is he that hath part in the first resurrection. On such the second death hath no power. The Bible speaks in the book of John of 2 resurrections, but there's 1,000 years between them. I'm really looking forward to your studies, Cindy, about the gaps. Because the Bible is full of gaps. And people say, oh no, there's no gaps. Yes, there's many gaps in the scriptures. And if you don't know that, that's why people get confused. He said, blessed and holy is he that hath part in the first resurrection. On such, and that's the one of life. On such, the second death hath no power. But they shall be priests of God. We're going to be priests of God and of Christ, and we shall reign with him 1,000 years, over and over and over again. He says 1,000 years. Look at the next page. Now Isaiah 32:1 says, behold, the king shall reign in righteousness, and princes shall reign in judgment. The resurrected saints from Old Testament, as well as the saints from the tribulation. There's saints from all different dispensations. There's saints from Adam to Abraham. And then there's saints from Abraham to Christ. And now there's saints from Christ to the rapture. And then there's saints from the tribulation to the kingdom. And all of those saints will be part of the first resurrection. And he has the resurrection in different parts, just like the harvest. He has the first fruits, then the harvest, and then the gleanings. The gleanings are the ones that will come from the kingdom. But see, that first resurrection is very important, because everyone in the first resurrection goes into the kingdom. Everyone in the second resurrection goes into the lake of fire. Okay? The second death. All right, let's look at this. King David, resurrected, will have a high position of saints. Will have a high position as saints from other ages. He will have a position. All you have to do is go to Ezekiel chapter 40 and read through 48. And it tells you about the kingdom, it tells you about the temple, it tells you about the positions, it tells you about David and his position. Also in Ezekiel chapter 37. There's no way we could read all these scriptures. We'd be here all night and all day tomorrow. But in Job speaks about being in his resurrection body. Look what he said. And though after my skin worms destroy this body, what? Yet in my flesh shall I see God. He knew he was going to get a new body. All right. And then David said, as for me, I will behold thy face in righteousness. I shall be satisfied. When? When I awake with thy likeness. They knew that they were going to be resurrected from the dead someday. But that doesn't happen until after the tribulation. Till after the tribulation, when they get their new bodies. So we have different groups that's going to be there in the kingdom. The heroes of faith. Look at this, Hebrews 11:13. These all died in faith. I mean, you read all those heroes of the Old Testament. And it says they all died in faith, not having received the promises, but having seen them afar off, and were persuaded of them. So they believed the kingdom. They believed they were going to have a kingdom. They believed David was going to be risen from the dead and be their king. They believed that their Messiah was coming in the kingdom. And they will have that kingdom. Or God has lied. And we know God doesn't lie. So, but having seen them afar off and were persuaded of them and embraced them and confessed that they were strangers and pilgrims here upon the earth, so are we. Our citizenship is in heaven. So they were strangers and pilgrims here on the earth. Hebrews 11:16 says, but now they desire a better country. Remember, what is the key word in Hebrews? Better, better, better. He said, but now they desire a better country, that is a heavenly country. Wherefore God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he hath prepared for them a city. See, they have part in the city too. They do. And when it sits down here upon the earth, everyone will have part in the city. Everyone. I mean, look, the gates. The gates have the name of Israel, the 12 tribes. Think of this. So they have part in that. Abraham is looking for that city, whose maker is God. So they'll all have their part in that. So they're different saints, different dispensations. I mean, and you have to just put it in order, and God's, if you just take it literally, God puts it right in order for you. So there's the heroes of faith that are going to be there. The tribulation saints. Revelation 7:13 says, one of the elders answered, saying unto me, this is John. Remember, John went to heaven in the spirit or in the body, whichever one you want to believe. But he went to heaven and he saw it all. He was in the spirit on the Isle of Patmos. And he saw it all of it. And he's in heaven, he sees this multitude of people. And he cries out, who are these people? Who are these people? So that means they're not the church. That group of people that he sees there are not the church. So he says, who are these people? In Revelation chapter 7. And one of the elders answered, saying unto me, what are these which are arrayed in white robes, and whence came they? And I said unto him, Sir, thou knowest. And he said to me, these are they which came out of the great tribulation. That last 3.5 years, multitudes are going to be saved. Right? And they have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb, but they're not part of the church. The church is complete and in heaven. They're not part of the church, but they have a position in the kingdom. Look what it says. Therefore are they before the throne of God, and they serve him day and night in his temple. And he that sitteth on the throne shall dwell among them. They have a position. And it goes on in Revelation chapter 7 how they'll not be in the heat anymore. They'll not be hungry anymore. And it goes on because it explains the horrible things that they had gone through during that great tribulation. And he says, you'll hunger no more. Because there's going to be a world famine. And the heat, remember the sun gets 7 times hotter. Isaiah chapter 13 said it gets 7 times hotter. To where they can just walk out in the sun and it'll burn them and blister them. They won't even be able to lay and get their suntan. The sun is going to burn up. And eventually it's going to burn out. I guess Al Gore's right. No. Eventually it's going to burn out because it's going to be total darkness. Total darkness. So before the kingdom begins, all the lost and enemies of God will be put to death. All of them. Because remember, when he comes, the first thing is the battle of Armageddon. And then there's going to be the judgment of the nations. Those who are not saved, they won't be there. So you know there's only going to be 153. 154 counting Israel. So before the kingdom begins, all the lost and the enemies of God will be put to death. I mean, even people who live through the tribulation, who have not received Christ, they will die. They'll not go into the kingdom. And you know, you have people, and I've had people tell me that all the time, well, I'll just wait. Because the Bible does say multitudes get saved during the tribulation. And I always tell them, yeah, but not you. Because you have your opportunity now. If you reject Him now, you won't get a chance during the tribulation. Well, I'll know when you disappear. No, you won't. Because the Lord said He's going to send a strong delusion over your mind. And you're going to believe the lie. I won't believe the lie. I mean, you've got to argue with a fool. Well, I won't believe the lie. I'll know if you disappeared. No, you won't. Because 2 Thessalonians says He's going to send a strong delusion over your mind and you're going to believe a lie. But see, you can show that to them and they'll go, I don't believe that. That's when you shake the dust off your feet and move on. Just move on. So the tribulation saints will be in the kingdom. The heroes of faith will be in the kingdom. The church will be in the kingdom. The Old Testament saints will be in the kingdom. Wow, you're going to get to see Noah and Abraham and David and Job and Esther. I mean, all of those Old Testament saints. You're going to get to see them and talk to them. In fact, they're going to be at your wedding in their spiritual bodies. But they won't be risen from the dead and get their new glorified bodies until at the end of the tribulation. Why? They have different positions. They're not part of the church. They're not part of the church. What an awesome thing to be part of the church, the body of Christ. You know, there are some things in the Bible called the church that actually is not the church. It's just an assembly. You need to know the difference. When he says that Israel was a church in the wilderness, that meant an assembly in the wilderness. That's why it's important to know what the words mean where they're used, in the Hebrew or the Greek. And if you just know that, you know, someone asked me last night if King James was a homosexual. This is something that they're saying now. That King James was a homosexual. And of course he was married to Queen Anne and had 8 children. There was never any, you know, discussion about him. You'll find it on different things now. There was no discussion ever of him being gay, and they even have a letter out there that they said he wrote to his gay lover. And you know why they're doing that? To attack, to discredit the Bible. That's exactly why they're doing that. Do you know that it was the Jesuits that was hired by the Catholic Church to destroy the Bible, the first King James Bible? And listen, this is how silly this is. Even if King James was gay, which he was not to my knowledge, but even if he was, he didn't write this book.
That's right.
He hired people to translate it from the Latin and the Hebrew and the Greek. He hired 70 scholars to translate it to where people could have it in their own language. So even if he was gay, he didn't write this book. But see, they're angry because of the scriptures that come down so hard on the gay, so they want to discredit him, thinking that's going to keep you from using the Bible. Well, he didn't write the Bible. This shows you how foolish these things are. And people go, oh, wow, I'm never going to look at that again. How foolish. How foolish. You just need to think. You need to think. There is an agenda. And the agenda is to try and destroy the Word of God. Do you know what? Jesus said that's not going to happen. He said that's not going to happen. That's right. So they're going to be the tribulation saints, the heroes of faith, Israel, all, and Adam. Adam's going to be there, and Eve. And who was the first one? Abel. The first murder. Abel. Abel's been there, what, 6,000 years. So, but before the kingdom starts, all the lost will die. Now, during the kingdom, many will be born. Multitudes will be born during 1,000 years in healthy, strong bodies all over the world. Literally billions of people will be born. But if they're openly rebellious, guess what? They die. The Bible speaks of a child dying at 100 years old. 1,000 years, I guess if you're 100 years old, you would seem to be like a child, right? But in Isaiah 66:23, look in this first box. It shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, this speaking of the kingdom, and from one Sabbath to another, shall all flesh come to worship before me. How are we going to celebrate those festivals? Yes, I'm looking forward to that, saith the Lord. And they shall go forth and look upon the carcasses of the men that have transgressed against me. How? The ones who have sinned against me during the kingdom, I mean, they're going to die. And they're not going to have a trial and go through and have lawyers and all of that, because you know what? The Lord knows their hearts. And see, we will have positions somewhat like the angels in the Old Testament. That will be somewhat like our position. The thing is, we'll read that here in a minute. The thing is that we'll be higher than the angels. He became lower than the angels, that he could raise us up higher than the angels, and that he would be higher than the angels. And no, don't think that you're going to take a jawbone or the ass and kill all these people. 189,000 slain one night by an angel. That's not going to happen. We're not going to be doing that, are we? You know, because there's not going to be any wars. Okay? But we'll have positions like the angels during that time to minister and to carry out the will of the Lord. How awesome is that? That's what I say. You know, people who say, well, I don't care as long as I'm there. You're going to care when you're there. You are. The tears are not going to be wiped away, people, until the end. Till the end of all things. You're going to want to do things that's going to bring him glory. You're going to want that position. What are you doing now? Do we really take it serious? Does people really believe he's coming? Do they really believe the kingdom is going to take place? Or is it just something that, oh yeah, I believe that. Well, let's get excited about it.
Amen.
And let's try and get people saved, that they won't be left here for this terrible time that's coming. We need to get serious about these things. And I'm not saying you're not serious, but it really concerns me when people are not. Think, wow, he is going to come. He is. And the kingdom is going to happen. And we're going to have positions like angels, and we're going to be here on this earth for 1,000 years. We'll be able to go up. I'm ready to go now. We'll be able to go up into the heavens in our new city and then come back down here to this earth. Woo! There's nothing better than that. Nothing here upon the earth can even compare to it, but yet the church just seems so dead most of the time. They should be excited about this. Look what he says. They're carcasses of men that have transgressed against me, for their worm shall not die, neither shall their fire be quenched, and they shall be a pouring upon all flesh. Wow. He's going to deal with sin. And then Zechariah 14, look what it says. It shall come to pass that everyone that is left of all the nations, this is after the tribulation, people, everyone that is left of all the nations which came against Jerusalem shall even go up from year to year to worship the King and the Lord of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. But look, and it shall be that whoso will not come up. See, so there will be rebellion among the people in their mortal bodies. Not you, but the people in their mortal bodies. There's going to be rebellion. Because look what it says. And it shall be that whoso will not come up of all the families of the earth unto Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, even upon them shall be no rain. He's going to withhold the rain like he did in the Old Testament. And actually, like he's doing in some of the western states and some of the countries right now. And if the family of Egypt go not up, use them as an example of the world. And if the family of Egypt go not up and come not, that have no rain, then there's going to be a plague sent against them. And boy, when the Lord sends a plague, he sends a plague. Right? There shall be the plague, wherewith the Lord will smite the heathen that came not up to keep the feast of the tabernacles. When is that? That's during that kingdom. Right? This shall be the punishment of Egypt and the punishment of all nations that come not up to keep the feast of tabernacles. And you know in Zechariah it also teaches those nations who come against Israel to destroy them. He said he's going to destroy them. So right there is one list of the 198 that won't be there, because he's going to destroy them. The roles in the kingdom. Let's just look at this for just a moment. The roles in the kingdom. The apostles, we already said in Matthew 19:28. Jesus said unto them, Verily I say unto you, that ye which have followed me in the regeneration, when the Son of Man shall sit in the throne of his glory, ye shall also sit upon what? 12 thrones. And we find them. That's why they're so excited in Acts. When he comes back from the dead and he's talking to them, you know, are you going to set up the kingdom now? Because they knew that there were going to be 12 thrones and they were going to sit upon them. What didn't they know? The church. They didn't know this. Peter didn't know there was going to be 2,000 years. He didn't know that. So when he rose from the dead, I mean, when he died, what did they say? Well, let's go fishing. Let's just go fishing. Why? Because they thought it was all over. I love the way that's said in the King James. He says, I go a-fishing. Sounds a little southern. He says, I go a-fishing. And they said, well, we're going with you. Can you see that? Well, they were so discouraged. Why? Because it tells us in the Gospels they didn't understand any of this. They had no clue. They didn't understand that he was going to die and rise again. They didn't know that. And you know what? He said they wasn't supposed to know. Why? It was a mystery hidden in the heart of God until it was time to be revealed. Look what it says. Luke 22:30 says that you may eat and drink at my table in my kingdom and sit on thrones judging the 12 tribes of Israel. And so what did the apostles say? Bring it on. We're ready. We're ready. Bring it on. Then Israel, what's their role in the kingdom? They will be subject to the king's reign. They will be exalted, listen, above the Gentiles. And the Bible teaches that they will be doubly blessed. The Bible speaks about a double judgment for some. But it says Israel will be doubled the blessings and the rewards. Why? To whom much is given, much is required. Look what Israel has been through. You said, well, she brought it upon herself. Didn't we all? Didn't we all? They're going to be exalted above the Gentiles. And I'll give you the scriptures here. Israel made righteous. I'll give you the scriptures here. God's witnesses during the kingdom. There'll be a channel through which all nations are blessed. They'll be the head of all nations. Deuteronomy. Read that in chapter 30. Head of all nations. But before that he says, guess what? You're going to lose the land. And I'm going to scatter you. You're going to be chastened. And hopefully I'll get this timeline done here one of these days and we'll put it up to show you where they're going to be chastened. They're being chastened right now. But during the kingdom, they're going to have double everything. And guess what? They're going to be served. There's going to be people who will be serving them. Working for them. Everybody will be prosperous. You know this prosperity gospel that's being preached and taught everywhere. They're taking verses out of the kingdom. They're taking verses out of the kingdom. They're promising people today those verses. False teachers. So they're going to, Israel will be high above all other nations. And the Gentiles, how about them? They're going to be subject to all the laws. And when I say Israel, and I'm talking about the Gentiles, I'm talking about the ones who are in their mortal bodies. Okay, I'm not talking about the church. I'm not talking about the saints. I'm talking about the ones who live through and they go into the kingdom and they have all these children. That's what I'm talking about. There'll still be a distinction between the nations. There'll still be a distinction between the Jews and the Gentiles. Because see, only during this time, the church age, is there no distinction between the Jew and the Gentile. Because they become what? Christians. Good. Very good. And so a lot of people don't understand that. You do. That's great. That distinction is only made here. From Pentecost to the rapture. After the rapture, it goes right back like it was before. Jew or Gentile. Jew or Gentile. Because the church will be taken out of here. Okay? Praise the Lord. So when I talk about this kingdom, I'm talking about the people in their mortal bodies, just like yours. Except some of them are going to live to be 1,000 years old. Be a lot of hair coloring going on. You're gonna be busy, Robin. The Gentiles will be subject to all the laws of Israel and all the Old Testament scriptures. And you find this all the way through the book of Isaiah. Didn't you think Isaiah and the people who were listening to him were, oh yes, we're going to be above all them Gentiles and they're going to serve us. And you can just hear them. Wow, yes, I believe that. Yeah, that's great. They just didn't realize what's going to happen between then and now. They'll share all the economic and spiritual blessings of the kingdom. They will occupy a subordinate role to Israel, because Israel will be head of all the nations. All the nations. Isaiah 14 says, for the Lord will have mercy on Jacob, and will yet choose Israel, and set them in their own land. And the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. And the people shall take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord for servants and handmaids. Table turns. And they shall take them captives. The Gentiles are going to be the ones doing all the work for a change. Not that we don't work now. But during the kingdom age, the Gentiles will be doing the work. And they'll be serving Israel, because Israel will be the head of all nations. We're looking at a kingdom here. A kingdom. And our position in that kingdom. Right? Isaiah 61:5 says, and the strangers shall stand and feed your flocks. And the sons of the alien shall be your plowman and your vine dressers. And I don't mean aliens. Okay? But ye shall be named the priest of the Lord. He's talking about Israel. And in their glory shall you boast yourselves. For your shame ye shall have double. Why? Think about Israel now. I mean, go through the Old Testament. Over and over and over and over again, they're taken captive. Over and over and over again, they sin against God. They cry out and they repent and they turn back to God. And the first thing you know, they're doing the same thing over and over and over again. And they're taken captive by the Assyrians. Well, first they were slaves in Egypt. And God told Abraham that's going to happen. He even told him to the very self-same day when they would be released. You find that in Exodus chapter 12. It says, and the self-same day that God told Abraham that they would be released, they were released. The self-same day. And then he said, you're going to be carried off by Babylon for 70 years. Then you're going to be ruled over by Medo-Persia, and then you're going to be ruled over by Greece, and then Rome. Then you're going to be carried off with Rome in 70 AD, and you're going to be scattered all over the world. Then you have the Holocaust. And now we're watching the second Holocaust is coming. He said, wow, but during the kingdom, you're going to be a priest. I'm going to bless you doubly above all the other nations. You're going to have double. Double. He loves them so. And Satan hates them with a passion. He said, for your shame you shall have double. Anybody ever read Corrie ten Boom's book? Did you see the movie? Wow. And think about it. You know, even back in the times of Babylon, when they were taken, they were humiliated and stripped naked and had to march in front of all the people, the Babylonians, and then again the Romans, again, just to humiliate them. Then with the Nazis, again, and then it's going to happen again, yet. For your shame you shall have double, for the confusion they shall rejoice in their portion, therefore in their land they shall possess the double. Everlasting joy shall be unto them. When I think of the double, I think about the double punishment that God's going to put upon the false church. Revelation chapter 17. In 18, he speaks about it being destroyed, the false religion and the false church. There'll be no false religion, by the way, during the kingdom. There'll be no idol worship. And it's not because they don't want to do it. It'll be, that's right, Zap. Mark went Zap. That's right. That's right. He said, for your shame you're going to have double. For I, the Lord, love judgment. I hate robbery for burnt offerings, and I will direct their work in truth. I love your lesson where Cindy said, truth wasn't a thing, it's a who. Jesus said, I am the truth. I'd never thought about that before. That truth is not a thing, it's a who. He said, I am the truth. That's awesome. I am the truth. He said, and I will make an everlasting covenant with you. That's that new covenant. All those covenants, I just printed them out on that chart today. All those different covenants. They're made with Israel. The new covenant is that eternal covenant that we have part of now. But it's going to be made with them. And their seed shall be known among the Gentiles, and their offspring among the people. All that see them shall acknowledge them, that they are the seed which the Lord hath blessed. Look, the saints will judge the world. This is where I want to get before we stop for our questions. The saints will judge the world. Who are the saints? Usins. And also from other dispensations, but Usins. And he's talking about Usins because when he's talking to them in Corinthian, who is he talking to? The church. This is why I say you must read a whole chapter, not just take one verse out of it and build a teaching on that. You can't do that. You have to read the verses before and the verses afterward. All right? He said, now it says, saints will judge the world, not the lost. In Revelation 20, 11 through 15. Let's turn back there and look at that. Revelation 20. Now, let's keep our calendar. The rapture is going to happen. We're going to be in heaven. Here upon the earth starts the tribulation for 7 years. At the end of the 7 years, the battle of Armageddon, when Jesus comes back and we come back with him. Then there's going to be a kingdom set up. Okay? A kingdom set up. And then after the kingdom, Satan will be dealt with. And then, what does he do? He calls up the white throne judgment. And who is the white throne judgment for? Just the lost. But here's something that we need to see. If they're all lost, why would they need a judgment? They're all lost anyway. So what's a judgment for?
To see what degree of hell.
To see what degree of hell. Thank you, Carol. Exactly right. To see the degrees of hell. Because just as there are rewards in heaven, some will get more rewards than others. There's degrees of hell. But here's the thing. It's eternal. He said, well, maybe it won't be so hot for some than others, but it'll still be eternal, and they will suffer and be in torment their whole life. But they will be judged according to what? Their works. Their works. In Revelation chapter 20. Oh, let's see. Verse 11. And I saw a great white throne. Notice the difference between the throne. Our throne, there's a rainbow, which means mercy, not gay. It means mercy. I saw a great white throne, and him that sat on it. Who is that? Jesus. Why? Because all judgment is given to Jesus. The judgment seat of Christ is Jesus. The white throne is Jesus. The judgment of the nations is Jesus. When it says we're going to judge the world, that means the living people here upon this earth while we are sitting in our thrones, ruling and reigning with Christ. Look what it says. And I saw a great white throne, and him that sat on it, from whose face the earth and the heaven fled away. And there was found no place for them, just suspended in the air somewhere. And I saw the dead, small and great, stand before God. And the books, plural, were opened. Why? Those books record every sin, every idle word, everything. And another book was opened, which is the book of life. See, their name is not in that book. That's why they're at the judgment. But But the other books are opened to give them the degrees of judgment. For instance, and I always use Granny as an example, because Granny didn't get saved till she was 92. But I always thought, wow, you know, for her to go to hell, what a horrible thing. Good little sweet lady like her. She wasn't perfect, but she was a good little sweet lady. But I was, you know, her hell will still be hell. Thank God she got saved. Hitler's hell will be worse. Why? Because they're judged according to their works. You know, there's a lot of good moral people out there who's going to stand before the Lord at the white throne judgment. There's a religious crowd that will stand before the Lord Jesus and say, Lord, Lord. And he'll say, not everybody who says, Lord, Lord, is one of mine. He said, didn't we raise the dead, and didn't we heal the sick, and didn't we do all these things? No, actually they didn't. If you read your scriptures, the only one who did those things were the apostles. He said, and the dead were judged out of those things which were written in the books, according to what? Their works. And the sea gave up the dead which were in it, and death and hell delivered up the dead which were in them, and they were judged every man according to their works. And death and hell were cast into the lake of fire. This is the second death. Do you see any mention of the church being there? No, why? They are in the New Jerusalem over here, with all the saints protected. They are not at this white throne judgment, only the lost and Jesus. But people say, oh, but they're going to judge the world. It says the world, not the lost. There's a difference. When they're judging the world in Corinthians, they're judging the ones who are here upon the earth in their mortal bodies, like I said. We'll have that